podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
The Two-Footed Podcast is brought to you by EPLindex.com and our presenting sponsor, Liberty Shield. Liberty Shield is a VPN provider. A virtual privacy network allows you to go online, change your location, access things you're geo-blocked from, while keeping your data safe. So, as an example, if you are a UK expat and want access to BBC iPlayer to watch Match of the Day, or ITV Hub, or all four, but you get that message that says this content is not available in your location, a Liberty Shield VPN gets you around that block, allows you to watch whatever you want on those services while also keeping your data safe. And it goes further than that. It allows you to open up Netflix's entire library by just changing your IP address. Liberty Shield is the #1 rated VPN provider on Trustpilot with 5-star ratings across the board. So go to libertyshield.com right now, use the code EPL25 and get either the hardware package or the software package. The hardware package is a router that you plug into your existing router, and any item you want to change the IP address on, be it your phone or your television, you connect that to the new Liberty Shield router. All other items can remain connected to your existing router. There's also a software package which is instantly downloadable to your device and you can get using straight away. Again, libertyshield.com, EPL25 for 25% off at checkout. We're also brought to you by Home of Hopcroft, a giftware and homeware company located in Scotland but shipping worldwide. Check out homeofhopcroft.co.uk and do check out the EPL Index and Anfield Index shops, which you'll find on Etsy. Use the codes EPL10 or RED10 for 10% off at checkout. And lastly, do remember to check out A Tad Predictable, hosted by Tadiwa. That podcast is on this feed before every Premier League match week. And then the EPL Roundtable, hosted by Kevin DeVries, on its own EPL Roundtable feed. So just search EPL Roundtable in your podcast device. And that's out after every match week. Now, on with the show. What's good, boys and girls? Two-Footed Podcast. Today is Tuesday. It is the 5th of March. Hope you're all well. It's a nice spring day, so we're going to celebrate that as Arsenal fans celebrate their 6-0 win over Sheffield United last night. This was one of the more embarrassing performances you'll ever see by Sheffield United. Martin Odegaard put Arsenal 1-up on 5 minutes. Declan Rice fed into the left channel, cuts the ball back. No Sheffield United defender anywhere within 5 yards of Martin Odegaard, who's 8 yards from their goal as he taps home. Jayden Bogle put through his own net after Bukayo Saka just far too easily broke in on the right-hand side and played the ball across goal. Not quite sure what Bogle was trying to accomplish, but he backheeled it into his own net. Martinelli made it 3 on 15 minutes. The defending wasn't embarrassing for this one, but it did take a massive deflection, which is what beat the keeper. Kai Havertz made it 4 on 25 minutes. Again, it's just shambolic defending. Sheffield United had an opportunity to clear the ball. Defender was far too weak in the challenge with Martinelli, and then flung Martinelli to the floor, allowing Havertz to break through and score from a tight angle. Declan Rice made it 5 on 39 minutes. This was pretty much a carbon copy of the Odegaard goal, except it was from the other side. Saka down the right, cut back into the centre, nobody anywhere close to Rice, and he put it in the back of the net. And then on 58 minutes, it was 6 with Ben White miscontrolling the ball and then still having plenty of time to get his shot away to wrap things up. Congrats to Arsenal, 3 points, 6 goals, all very good. But, you know, you're still third in the league. So still plenty of work to do. Not in historic form. You rank just below Leicester City 18-19 in terms of a run of form in Premier League history. And that's discounting all of the great teams the Premier League has ever seen. But still, you're still in good form. You're still in position to challenge for the title. But you've got one game and then the real work starts. Then the title race starts. So we'll see how you stand in 6 games' time. But Sheffield United, I mean, sweet Lord. We talked about the defence yesterday, and they were conceding 2.5 goals per game. It's now up to 2.65 goals per game. They've conceded 72 now in 27 games. Their goal difference is minus 50. Minus 50. Last season, the worst goal difference was minus 37. They have 11 games left. Season before, it was minus 43. That was a Watford team that was dreadful defensively. Sorry, no, I'm wrong. It was Norwich. Minus 61. Minus 61. Sheffield United, they still have a little way to go, but they'll get there. 2021, minus 43. That was Sheffield United, a historically bad campaign. 1920, it's minus 49. That's Norwich again. 18-19, minus 54. That Huddersfield team, who were absolutely shocking and finished on 16 points. 17-18, minus 33, which, to be fair, isn't actually dreadful. It's dreadful. It's not historically dreadful. And they did finish with 33 points. In fact, all 3 teams that went down that year had over 30 points, which Sheffield United will not be getting close to. 16-17, minus 43 for Hull. 15-16, minus 49 for Villa. And 14-15, minus 31 for QPR. So in the last 10 years, only 2 teams with a worse goal difference across a season than Sheffield United have now. Across the history of the Premier League, there are 4 teams worse than what Sheffield United have now. That Huddersfield team, Ipswich in 94-95, minus 57. Should point out that was a 42-game season. Norwich, minus 61. And then Derby, minus 69 in the historically poor 07-08 campaign. They conceded 89 goals and scored only 20. Now, Sheffield United will score more goals than them and have more points than them, but still. So if we look at the worst defensive records in the history of the Premier League, number 5 is Wolves. Sorry, that might be number 6. Hang on 1 second. Yeah. Number 6 is Wolves on 82 goals conceded in the 11-12 campaign. I think it's a fair bet that Sheffield United will pass them. Number 4 is Burnley in 09-10, 82 goals conceded. Again, they'll pass them. Then we have that Norwich team from a couple of years ago with 84 conceded. And again, I think it's a fair bet that they'll concede 12 goals in the remaining 11 games. Number 3 then is Fulham in 13-14, which was 85 goals conceded. That Derby team in 07-08, 89 goals conceded. And the worst defensive team in the history of the Premier League is Swindon Town in 93-94, conceding 100 goals in a 42-game season. So if we divide 100 by 42, that gives us 2.38 goals per game conceded. That's better than Sheffield United right now. Sheffield United right now are playing at a level defensively that I've never seen before. It's that bad. And they are on course to concede 101 goals across a 38-game season. So they're on track to beat the Swindon record in 4 games less. That is genuinely embarrassing. Now, from a points total point of view, obviously, Burnley are matching them in their incompetence, and Burnley are a genuinely dreadful defensive team as well. They've conceded 60. So they'll likely push towards 80 conceded, possibly 85. They will be one of the worst defensive teams ever. But Sheffield United are on track to be the worst ever in 4 games less. I think it was Jamie Carragher that pointed out that their per game is the worst the league has ever seen. But if they concede 100 goals this season, in a 38-game season, in this era, that would be staggering levels of incompetence. And they've got, like I said, they've got 13 points so far. So let's have a look at the remaining fixtures and see where we think they're going to end up. So you've got Bournemouth away next. I would say defeat. You've got a Manchester United away game that needs to be rescheduled because United are playing in the FA Cup that weekend. I would say that's a defeat. You've got Fulham at home. Potentially a draw. I don't see them beating Fulham. I would say potentially a draw. They go to Anfield, they'll lose. They play Chelsea at home, they'll lose. They go to Brentford, I think they'll lose. Burnley at home, that's a potential win. Newcastle away, they'll lose. Forest at home, I would say potential draw. Everton away, they'll lose. And Spurs away, they will lose. That's, I think, maximum 5 points that they take over their remaining 11 games. And if we look back at their previous 11 games, they took 5 points. And in their previous 17 games, they took 8 points. So I think 5 points is fair. They took 4 points from the first 11 games of the season. They took 5 from the second 11 games of the season. If they draw with Fulham and beat Burnley, so if they draw with Fulham, that'll be 4 points from the third 11 games. And then potentially they could take 4 points from the last 6 as it is. Like or last 5. Yeah, it's last 5. That is shocking. That is genuinely shocking. So let's just say 18 points. If we look at the worst teams in Premier League history, Portsmouth finished on 28 points. Now, they were given a 9-point deduction for going into administration, so they ended on 19, but they earned 28 points across the season. They won't get to the 28. They certainly won't get to Leicester's 29 in 94-95, which, when you adjust it for a 38-game season as opposed to the 42-game season, is 26 points. They won't get there. West Brom 02-03, 26 points. They won't get there. Bradford 2000-2001, 26 points. They won't get there. West Brom again in 2021, 26 points. No chance. QPR 12-13, 25 points. No chance. Wolves 11-12, 25 points. No chance. Fulham 18-19, 26 points. No hope. Ipswich 94-95, adjusted for a 38-game season, it's about 24 points, just over 24 points, but 24 points to round down, was 27 in the 42 games. They won't get there. Sunderland 16-17, 24 points, no chance. Watford 99-2000, 24 points. Watford 21-22, 23 points. Sheffield United themselves, 2021, which, as we've pointed out, historically bad. We can go back and look at that in a second. 23 points, minus 43 goal difference. They're going to be worse this year. Norwich, 21-22, 22 points, minus 56. They're going to be worse than that. Norwich, 19-20, 21 points, minus 49. They will be worse than that. Sunderland, 02-03, 19 points, minus 44 goal difference. They'll be worse in terms of goal difference. They could potentially catch them in points. They need to catch that Sunderland team to avoid being one of the 5 worst teams in Premier League history. Number 4 on the list is Aston Villa. Now, if they get to the 18-point mark, they'll have more points than that Villa team who took 17 points in 15-16, but their goal difference is only minus 49, and Sheffield United is going to be, I think, considerably higher. Huddersfield, 18-19, 16 points. Again, they should catch them. Sunderland, 05-06, 15 points, minus 43. Again, points-wise, they should, but maybe they won't. Maybe they won't. They've already passed the Derby team of 07-08 in terms of points. They may well end up with a worse goal difference, which was minus 69 that year. And if we, 101 goals conceded, and they're averaging less than a goal a game themselves. So let's see. 22 divided by 27 is 0.815. You extrapolate that out over a 38-game season. They're on track to score 31 goals and concede 101. So that would be minus 70, which would be the worst goal difference, the worst defensive record in Premier League history. And potentially they could end up with the second lowest points total. But I think they probably end up with the 5th lowest points total. And maybe I'm being generous, but I think they're going to get spanked a couple of more times. I think they'll get hammered at Anfield. I think they'll get hammered up at Newcastle. I think Spurs will hammer them on the final day. I think United might hammer them as well. 8-0 against Newcastle, 5-0 at Arsenal, 5-0 at Burnley, 5-0 at home to Villa, 5-0 at home to Brighton, 6-0 at home to Arsenal. 4 times this season conceding 5 or more at home, just in the league. They also conceded 5 at home in the FA Cup to Brighton 3 weeks before they conceded 5 in the league. 6 games in one season conceding 5 or more, 4 of them at home. When the second goal went in last night, the own goal, which was on 13 minutes, people started to leave. When the third went in on 15 minutes, people started to stream out. By half time, the stadium looked like 10 to 12,000 people had left. These are people that have paid hard-earned money to go and watch their team, support their team. And they've been driven out of the stadium because there's just an embarrassing lack of effort. I don't see how Chris Wilder can survive the rest of the season. I really don't. I'd sack him this morning. Their only real hope to pick up enough points to avoid being one of the 5 worst teams in the history of the Premier League is a change of manager. The problem they have is that they sacked Heckenbottom earlier this season. And he had, I believe, 18 months remaining on his contract. So you're going to be paying him until the end of next season. And when they brought Chris Wilder back, they gave him an 18-month contract. So if they sack him, they'll also be paying him till the end of next season. Now, in all likelihood, those are the type of deals where if the manager gets another job, if they are earning the same amount of money as they were at Sheffield United, which is unlikely because they won't get Premier League jobs, Sheffield United would not have to pay anything if it was the same or more. But if it's less, they'll have to make up the difference. And because they're both likely to get lower league jobs, there will be less. So they'll end up paying both of them through next season, and then they'd be paying someone else as well. But they can't think it's sustainable to go down with Chris Wilder and try and come back up. They just can't. He has shown absolutely nothing to suggest he's capable of turning this around. And when we look at their last 34 league games under Chris Wilder, which is the 23 of the previous season before he left, and the 11 he's taken charge of this season, he's taken 16 points across 2 different seasons. They're historically bad defensively. They've lost 10 of the 15 games he's been in charge of in all competitions. It's at the point now where it's embarrassing. Like, it's genuinely embarrassing. And they're unwatchable. They're absolutely unwatchable. Loads of neutrals last night were complaining that they turned the game off at 3-0. Because nobody really wants to watch, unless it's your own team, nobody wants to watch somebody not put in any effort and get absolutely annihilated. Nobody enjoys punching down. And you could tell with Arsenal yesterday in the second half, like, they really, really let off the pedal. They were giving Sheffield United a lot of mercy in that game. It's pretty clear that Arteta told them at halftime, let's not try and run this up too much. Let's not embarrass them here. Because it felt like when Rice scored, it felt like we might finally get a 10-0. It really did feel that way. And like I said, they had that 8-0 defeat at home to Newcastle. And even in that, it felt a little bit at times like Newcastle were letting them off the hook. Like, Toon were only 3-0 up at halftime. And in the second half, like, they were attacking, but it's not like they were relentlessly attacking. It felt like Toon could have got 10. It definitely felt like Arsenal could have got 10 last night. And it's bad enough losing heavily away. Like, you lose 5-0 away to Arsenal, fair enough. That's understandable. It's not understandable to lose 5-0 away to Burnley. And it's just not acceptable to be losing by 5 or more goals at home 4 times in a season. To concede 5 goals at home in one season 5 different times, including the FA Cup game, you nearly have to be throwing goals in. It's not a sustainable situation there with Chris Wilder. He has made no impact since taking over. He was appointed on the 5th of December. Now, I know they've taken slightly more points under him than they did under Heckingbottom. Under Heckingbottom, they'd only taken 5 points. So under Wilder, they've taken 8. But he's made no impact. It's been a shambles from minute one. He's had 13 games, sorry, not 11, 13 games in the league. And Heckingbottom had 14. Their next game is Bournemouth. They'll have had even games then. And he'll have taken 3 points more. It's time for another change. It really is. And it might just be time to say, you know what, we're going down. Let's start trimming away the players we no longer want involved with our football club. Let's bring in whatever kids are in the academy and let them have game time and get some experience. Because it's unacceptable, the performances that they're putting in. It really is unacceptable. And the strange thing about them is you look at their contract situations coming up this summer. Adam Davies, Wes Fotheringham, and Jordan Amissa. That's 3 of their 4 goalkeepers out of contract this summer. They have 5, and they've 12 defenders under contract at the moment. George Baldock, Max Lowe, Chris Basham, John Egan, Jaden Bogle, Yasser Larouche, Mason Holgate, who's on loan, as is Larouche, to be fair, and Reece Norrington Davies. They're all out of contract. They're all out of contract. And the only two you'd likely want to keep are Jaden Bogle and Reece Norrington Davies. Maybe Max Lowe as well. Maybe you'd keep him because you paid a decent amount of money for him. That's a lot of defenders leaving. Trusty, Ahmed Hodzic, Robinson, and Sam Curtis, who's yet to play for them, the young kid they signed from St. Patrick's Athletic. They're the only ones under contract for next season, defensively, and one goalkeeper. In midfield, Oliver Norwood, Ben Osborne, Ollie Arblaster, James McAtee's on loan. The other three are out of contract this summer, meaning they've got Hammer, Sousa, Davies, Ben Slimane, Andre Brooks, who's an academy kid, and Evan Easton under contract, who's again an academy kid. Ollie Arblaster is an academy kid. You'd imagine they will try and work a deal with him. And then in attack, you've got Ollie McBurney out of contract, Ben Brereton Diaz on loan, Daniel Jebison out of contract, and Billy Blacker out of contract. Players currently out on loan: Ishmael Koulibaly is out of contract, Jili Bouabou is out of contract, and Sai Sagdev is out of contract. Benny Traore and Femi Siriki. Oh, and Antoine Hackford, their contract. Like they're going to need an enormous rebuild this summer. They don't have a squad to go down with. They've got a midfield group, but they don't have a squad to go down with. There's some talent there, without question. I'd be hopeful that Nantes won't pick up the Benny Traore option if I was them and look to bring him back in. And I'd be looking to re-sign Daniel Jebison and go into next season with Archer, Asulu, Traore, Jebison, and Brewster as my 5 forwards. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's promising. They're at least young and talented. Archer's 22, Brewster's 23, Asulu is 20, Jebison is 20, and Traore is 21. At least that's a group that maybe you can build with. Midfield, I don't know if Gustavo Hammer will be interested in going back down, but maybe he will. You'll have him, you'll have Vinny Sousa, you'll have Tom Davies, Ben Slimane, Andre Brooks. It's not bad. Needs an addition or two, but it's not bad. There's talent and promise there. But the defence needs a significant workover because I don't think Ahmed Hodzic is going down with them. He'll probably push to leave. Like I said, I'd keep Bogle, I'd keep Norrington Davies, I'd probably keep Max Lowe, but I'd be wanting a starting right back to play opposite Norrington Davies, assuming he can get back to fitness, which maybe he can't. And you're going to need a whole new batch of centre-backs because likely the only one you have left is Alston Trusty. Jack Robinson shouldn't be anywhere near the team. He's been an absolute disaster for them this year. And then you're going to need to sign a couple of backup goalkeepers. Now, maybe you can keep Amissa. He's only young. He's 22. Maybe you re-sign Adam Davies or Wes Fotheringham. I don't know why you would. But that's a lot of work to do when you've gone down. It really is. I mean, I don't even know. I mean, you look at the players that they signed this season, and it's just, I mean, Ben Slimane, talented, but wasn't ready for the Premier League. Benny Traore, talented, wasn't ready. Alston Trusty, frankly, looks like he's a backup at best. Sosa and Hammer I've been impressed with, but they've been inconsistent. Tom Davies has obviously been injured for quite a bit of it. Archer's been inconsistent. He's very talented. Sam Curtis, he's very young. He's very talented, but he hasn't played yet. Gerbic, I said when they signed him, I wasn't a big fan. He is what he is. And then the loans, Yasser Larouche's been poor. Luke Thomas, they brought him in and shipped him back out in January when he was meant to be in for the season. James McAtee has been good. Brereton Diaz has been okay. But okay is about it. And Mason Holgate's been a disaster. Like this is how to fail in the Premier League. Because when you look at the players that left, Iliman and Jai, their best player, Sander Berge, their second best player. And yes, they signed some good players, but they didn't sign nearly enough. And when you look at the guys that have been playing for them, it's just far too many championship caliber players. Wes Fotheringham, 24 league appearances, championship caliber player. George Baldock, well past his best. Alston Trusty, squad player at best. Chris Basham, 8 appearances, championship at best. John Egan, 6 appearances. At this point in his career, championship. Jack Robinson is a League One caliber player. Bogle's a squad player. LaRouche just hasn't been good. Norrington Davies, unfortunately, came up injured, came back, was starting to look like he was finding a little bit of a rhythm, got hurt again, gone. Ollie Norwood, 20 appearances, championship player. Ben Osborne, 11 appearances, championship player. Ollie McBurney, 13 appearances, championship player. Like, these lads aren't good enough for the Premier League. Luke Thomas played 12 times, and Chris Wilder binned him off. John Fleck had been at the club a long time. He got sent off in January as well, but was probably the right decision. You've got, in the Premier League, top goal scorers, Ollie McBurney, 4. Cameron Archer, 4. I think McBurney, 2 of them are penalties. In all competitions, your top scorer is James McAtee with 5. You've got 2 lads who scored 4 in the Premier League, 1 who got 3, 2 who got 2, and 4 who scored 1, and that's it. 22 Premier League goals, including 3 own goals. 1/7 of your goals have been own goals. 28 goals in all competitions. I mean, there is talent there. You get the right manager in, and I do think he can work with, if he's allowed to re-sign the few players and if Traore is brought back into the mix, I do think he can put together a midfield and attack that'll be quite good, potentially very good in the Championship. The issues behind that. Now, maybe you can convince Ahmed Hodzic to stay, but I have serious doubts. And the thing with Norrington Davies and Bogle and Lowe is they're all wing backs. They're not really full backs. Norrington Davies, I think, would be okay as a fullback. Bogle's not good enough defensively, which made last night's decision to play him in a back 4 just bizarre. But everything Chris Wilder has done since coming back is bizarre. I'll take a break. I'll be back after this. Right, welcome back. Let's take a quick run around Europe. In the Bundesliga on Friday night, Freiburg 2, Bayern Munich 2. More points dropped for Harry Kane and co. Late Lucas Huller goal giving Freiburg a point that Bayern desperately didn't want them to have. Mainz 1, Gladbach 1. Heidenheim 1, Eintracht Frankfurt 2. Union Berlin 0, Borussia Dortmund 2. Karim Adeyemi and Ian Matson with the goals in that one. Darmstadt 0, Augsburg 6. And if you saw the clip of the Darmstadt Ultra going on the pitch and passionately giving the players a proper telling off, that's the type of thing that fans can do that might actually help, because players need to understand that they're letting people down. Bochum 1, Leipzig 4. Danny Olmo, Luis Openda, an own goal by Ordetz, and Yusuf Poulsen, who's somehow still at Leipzig, with the goals in that one. Wolfsburg 2, Stuttgart 3. Joachim Mao and Lucas Nemecha with the goals for Wolfsburg. Seru Guirassy with 2, and Joshua Wagnerman with the winner for Stuttgart. Cologne 0, Leverkusen 2. Cologne had a man sent off on 14 minutes, and given that they're awful, that didn't help things. Frimpong and Grimaldo with the goals. And then Hoffenheim 2, Werder Bremen 1. And we'll just move past that one. Leverkusen are now 10 points clear at the top of the table with 10 games left. It would take a monumental bottle job to lose it from here. Stuttgart are 4 points behind Bayern and 7 points ahead of Leipzig, and looking a really good bet to surprisingly snatch a Champions League spot. The battle really is for fourth between Dortmund and Leipzig. Then it's Eintracht, Hoffenheim, Werder, Freiburg, Augsburg, Heidenheim, Gladbach, Wolfsburg, Union Berlin, Bochum, Cologne in the relegation playoff, and Mainz and Darmstadt in the relegation spots. And given there are 8 points between Bochum and Cologne, it seems unlikely that any of them get out of that mess. The battle is which one of them can get into the relegation playoff and avoid automatic relegation, giving themselves at least that fighting chance in the promotion playoff against the third finishing team in the second Bundesliga, which right now is Hamburg. So that would be pretty monumental because Hamburg are a historically huge club and belong in the top flight. They've been gone for a number of years now, having never been relegated prior to that. They're desperate to get back up. It is funny to look at the second Bundesliga. You see St. Pauli there. They're not a huge club, but they're culturally a fantastic club. Hamburg, Hanover spent a long time in the top flight. Dusseldorf should be in Fortuna Dusseldorf should be in the top flight. Nuremberg should be in the top flight. Schalke and Kaiserslautern. I mean, those are two of the biggest clubs in German football, and they're 14th and 15th, respectively, in the second division. We move to Portugal, where there was an absolute annihilation at the weekend. Chaves 1, Araku 5. That's not the annihilation. Mornings 0, Rio Ave 0. Estoril 1, Vitoria 3, Braga 3, Estrela 0, Portimonense 0, Vizela 0, Casapia 0, Gil Vicente 0, Sporting 3, Farense 2. Sporting went 3-0, went 2-0 up, let Farense back into it, 2-1, then 2-2. Pedro Concalves with the winner. Sporting made harder work of that than it should have been. Famalicão 1, Boa Vista 1, but in the big game of the weekend, Porto 5, Benfica 0. Galeno, who scored the goal against Arsenal, he got 2. Wendell got 1. Pepe got 1. And Danny Namoso scored to make it even more embarrassing. The Benfica Twitter account stopped tweeting after the fourth goal. They just gave up and went home. Sporting are top, a point clear of Benfica with a game in hand. And that game in hand is against 8th place Famalicão, who they should beat. Win that, they're 4 points clear with 10 games left. 6 points between Benfica and Porto. Then a further 3 points to Braga. Then we go Vitoria, Morens, Aroca, Famalicão, Gil Vicente, Casapia, Farense, Boa Vista, Rio Ave, Portimonense, Estoril, Estrela, Chaves, and Vizela at the bottom. In the French League, Monaco 0, PSG 0 in the big clash of the weekend. Reims 0, Lille 1. Another goal for Jonathan David in that one. Clermont Foot 1, Marseille 5. Iliman Ndiaye, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang among the goals in that one. Toulouse 2, Nice 1. Big win for Toulouse, who are battling relegation. Big loss for Nice, who are trying to get themselves Champions League football. Brest 1, Le Havre 0. Nantes 0, Metz 2. And did happen to watch a good bit of that one. Lamine Camara was absolutely unbelievable. Montpellier 2, Strasbourg 2. Rennes 1, Lorient 2. Lyon 0, Lens 3. El Yawahi and Kevin Danzo among the goals. PSG are top, 9 points clear of Brest, who now have a 4-point gap on Monaco, who are 1 point clear of Lille, who are 1 point clear of Nice. Nice have dropped from 2nd to 5th. They've lost three of the last 4 games. They've no wins in the last 5. And the lack of goals has really caught up to them. 24 games played, only 17 conceded, still the best defensive record in the league, but only 23 goals scored. And there are only 3 teams who've scored less. Sorry, two teams have scored less. Nantes have scored the same. They're 14th. Metz have scored less. They're 17th. And Clermont-Foot have scored the least. They've scored 17. They're bottom. After Nice, it's Lens, Marseille, Rennes, Reims, Toulouse, Lyon, Strasbourg, Lorient, Nantes, Le Havre, Montpellier, Metz, and Clermont-Foot. To La Liga, where we had plenty of controversy at the weekend. Celta Vigo 1, Almeria 0, big win for Celta. Sevilla 3, Real Sociedad 2. En Naziri got 2. Sergio Ramos scored to give Sevilla a big win that not many people thought they'd get. Andre Silva and Bryce Mendes with the goals for Sociedad. Rayo Vallecano 1, Cadiz 1, Getafe 3, Las Palmas 3, Valencia 2, Real Madrid 2. Obviously a horrifying injury in that game to Diakabi. Jude Bellingham sent off, goal disallowed, the typical scumbag racist chanting of Vinicius Jr. All in all, a fairly horrific fairly horrific evening. Villarreal 5, Granada 1, Real Madrid 2, Atletico Madrid 2, Real Betis 1. Alvaro Morata with the winner in that one. Mallorca 1, Girona 0. The wheels have come off for Girona. Athletic Club 0, Barcelona 0 in a very, very dull game. And Osasuna 1, Alaves 0. So Real are top. They're 7 points clear of Girona, who've lost 3 of 4 and 4 in their last 7 or something like that. Then it's Barcelona a point back. At this point, you'd back them to catch Girona. Atletico Madrid are on 55. I think they will catch Girona only 4 points behind. Then it's a 5-point gap to Athletic Club, then 8 points to Real Betis, then Real Sociedad, then Las Palmas, then Valencia in 9th, which is an improvement for them over the last few seasons. Osasuna, Getafe, Villarreal, Alaves, Sevilla in 14th. That's why it was a big win for them, because had they failed to win that game, given Mallorca 1 and given Celta Vigo 1, and given Rayo Vallecano got a point, they would have been just outside the relegation zone. Then Mallorca, then Rayo Vallecano, then Celta Vigo. Then it's a 5-point gap to Cadiz, 5-point gap to Granada, 5-point gap to Almeria, who through 27 games still have not won a game. Still have not won a game. They've taken 9 points because of 9 draws, which means they've actually picked up points in more games this season than Sheffield United, and they've conceded less and they've conceded more. So despite having less points, I'd make the argument that they're actually having a better season than Sheffield United. We'll move next to Serie A. That is our last spot, I believe. And Inter Milan are starting to run away with things. So Lazio 0, Milan 1, Noah Okafor with a late winner. Lazio ended that game with 8 players. Luca Pellegrini was sent off in 57. Muricic and Guendouzi were both sent off in stoppage time. Udinese 1, Salernitana 0. Festi Obaselli was sent off in that one, unfortunately. Young Irish player with a big future ahead of him. Monza 1, Roma 4. Lorenzo Pellegrini, Romelu Lukaku, Paulo Dybala, and Leandro Paredes with the goals there. Torino 0, Fiorentina 0, which is a really good result for Torino, considering they played the entire second half with 10 men. Verona 1, Sassuolo 0. Frosinone 1, Lecce 1. Did Patrick Dorgu play in that? Is it worth my while? No, he did not. And thus it is not worth my while trying to find any highlights of that. Empoli 0, Cagliari 1. Atalanta 1, Bologna 2. This Bologna season just keeps going. Joshua Zirkzee and Lewis Ferguson with the goals after Ademola Lookman had put Atalanta 1 up. Napoli 2, Juve 1. Big win for Napoli. Kvicha and Raspadori with the goals, either side of a Federico Chiesa goal for Juve. And then finally, Inter 2, Genoa 1. Aslani and Alexis Sanchez with the goals for Inter. Johan Vasquez pulled one back for Genoa, but they weren't going to beat or they weren't going to get anything from that game. Inter are 15 points clear with 11 games to go. 15 points. It's not even a competition. Juve are second. Milan are third, a point behind Juve and in significantly better form. Bologna are fourth and have now opened a 4-point gap on Roma. They've won 5 in a row, but Roma are playing really well under Daniele De Rossi. And you'd imagine he is going to get that job permanently come the summer. Atalanta then a point behind Roma. Then Napoli are 3 points further back and desperately hoping they can get some sort of European football for next year. Then it's Fiorentina, then Lazio having a very disappointing season in 9th, but might still knock Bayern Munich out of the Champions League. Then Torino, then Monza, then Genoa, Lecce, Empoli, Udinese, Frosinone, Verona, Cagliari, Sassuolo, and Salernitana. Now, Salernitana are pretty much gone. Sassuolo are in big trouble. They've lost 4 in a row. They're 3 points and a lot of goals from safety. But really and truly, anyone from Lecce to Sassuolo could go down. That's 7 teams for 2 spots. And any of them could go down. They're all equally dreadful. We do have some games being played tonight. We have Champions League action as Bayern take on Lazio. Obviously, Lazio won the first leg 1-0. Bayern are in terrible form. And I would imagine that if they lose tonight or fail to progress tonight, that is the last time we see Thomas Tuchel at Bayern Munich. The other game tonight is Real Sociedad against PSG. Obviously, PSG won the first game 2-0. Mbappe and Bradley Barcola got the goals that night. Ciro Immobile got the goal in the Lazio Bayern game. I would expect Bayern to go through, despite the fact that they're in poor form. Lazio just aren't very good. And PSG should progress fairly comfortably. Sociedad will give them a game. It'll be tough enough because it's in Sociedad, but or it's in San Sebastian. Excuse me, it's in San Sebastian. So I think La Real will give them a good enough game, but PSG should have enough quality to see themselves through. And we'll go to another break and we'll be back with the gossip. So I'll see you after this. Right, welcome back. So let's take a look at the Garth Crooks Team of the Week, because that's always a wonderful place to start anything. Garth, as we know, watches one game per weekend, which is the Spurs game, and then whatever Sky happened to show, and will then watch himself a little bit of Match of the Day and try and deduce, or he'll just read match reports and see who scored, and he'll deduce from there what the Team of the Week is. So he has Caoimhín Kelleher in goal. I mean, he didn't have anything to do, so I'm not really sure. He made one save that was offside and one other one that was basically rolled at him. So no on that. He has Kurt Zuma, who was dreadful, scored but was dreadful, so no. Gave away a penalty, was absolutely dominated by Beto, so no. He has Van Dijk, who was great, so that's fine. He has Mickey Van de Ven, who I thought played very well, so fair enough. Alexis McAllister, yeah, fair enough. Harry Wilson, he got a goal and an assist, but I'm not sure. And he's got him in central midfield. And for some reason, he's got Thomas Souček playing right wing. I assume they're meant to be swapped. Souček wasn't good in that game either, but he did score. He's got Odegaard, that's fair. He's got Johan Vissa. I mean, Bukayo Saka was much better last night than Vissa was for Brentford. He's gone for Ollie Watkins, fair enough. And he's got Phil Foden, which is fair. But Kelleher, Zuma, Wilson and Souček and Vissa, I would say absolutely not. Aston Villa have released their accounts for the 22-23 season and declared a loss of 119.6 million. The cost of having Steven Gerrard as your manager, I guess. Now, this will lead to questions over how they stand with profit and sustainability. The season before, 21-22, they had a profit of 300 grand, largely because of the sale of Jack Grealish and a couple of others. But they spent a lot of money that year as well. But they'd also spent quite a bit the previous season. Now, their revenue has gone up by just under 30 million. They spent 63.7 million in this year on new players for Diego Carlos, Phil Coutinho, just obviously not great spending. Wages went up by 60 million, which is really not good. Player amortization rose by 82 million. They had to sack Steven Gerrard and pay off him and his staff and hire Unai Emery and then make a few other moves. But I will be interested to see how their accounts look across the 3 years. Obviously, huge loss this year, small profit last year. I'd be betting, now it's out there, you can go and find it. I'd be betting they made a significant loss in the 2021 season, though how much of it were they able to write off against COVID? Did they do an Everton and write off far more than they actually lost? And maybe that keeps them in decent health. They will potentially have Champions League football next season. For this season, they've got European football and they're going to finish pretty high in the table, so they'll get good prize money for that. But we'll wait and see. They could be facing a situation where they do need to make a couple of sales. And as I've said, Douglas Luiz is the obvious one. 80 million. If Arsenal are willing to pay that, you jump at it and you take their hands with them, because that would be a huge overpay. He's a good player. Like, he is a good player. He's not an £80 million player. Obviously, we know that Everton had their 10 points deducted. It was reduced to 6. And Everton and Forest are facing breaches for their accounts up to 22-23. Forest's case is due to be heard this week, and a date for Everton's hearing is not yet known, but it must be heard by the 8th of April. And the appeals process could go to the 24th of May, which is the week after the season has concluded. So potentially, Everton might get relegated and still be working on an appeal. And then what happens then? Like, if they've been relegated and it goes to appeal and their points deduction gets, and then their second points deduction gets reduced, do they stay in the division? Do they start next season with more points? I don't know how that's going to work. This is going to get messy. It's going to get very, very messy. Onwards to the gossip we go. Manchester United and Victor Osimhen. Oh dear, I don't think Victor wants any part of that. Victor Osimhen and Rasmus Højlund would be horrible as a front pair. So United might be positioning themselves to be in the mix for him. I personally don't believe that they have any chance of signing him. I think he'll end up at PSG. Newcastle are close to agreeing a new deal with Joe Linton. I said yesterday they probably wouldn't, but it looks like they might. Now, is this Luke Edwards? It is Luke Edwards, so could well be utter crap. Liverpool might have to pay Bayer Leverkusen a world record fee for manager of 21 million to bring in Xabi Alonso, double what they paid to sign him as a player, which is a bit mad, but it was 20 years ago. Bayern Munich will part company with Thomas Tuchel and have held initial discussions with Alonso. Now, there's many other people saying that that's not true. Chelsea have identified Roberto De Zerbi and Ruben Amorim as potential replacements for Maurizio Pochettino. It's decent journalists saying that, but I just still don't believe it, because I don't think either of them would want that job. Frankly, I think Amorim is going to get much better offers. I think he'll get offered the Liverpool job. I think he'll get offered the Bayern job. I just don't see him going there. And I think De Zerbi will be smart enough to look at the guy who he followed at Brighton and what happened to him when he went to Chelsea. De Zerbi to United is possible. I could see him wanting to go there. But I have a hard time seeing him take the Chelsea job. A number of Manchester United players believe that Erik ten Hag will be replaced at the end of the season. Ange Postecoglou will reject any offers to leave. Everybody's known that a long time. Tottenham have sent scouts to watch Morten Hjulmand, a 24-year-old Denmark midfielder who has an Arsenal tattoo on his shoulder. Jadon Sancho is to be sold this summer, irrespective of whether Erik ten Hag is staying. Well, we'll see, because if a manager comes in who wants him, they're going to keep him. That's just foolish. Newcastle plan to send Yankuba Minta out on loan for a second successive season. He's done pretty well at Feyenoord this year. Real Madrid are willing to raise their offer for Alphonso Davies to 43 million. Given he's got a year left and he seems to want out, that seems like fair business. Bayern will line up Theo Hernandez as his replacement. They obviously had his brother Lucas for a number of years, so we'll see if they can get Theo in. They should never have sold Lucas Hernandez. Burnley manager Vincent Kompany continues to retain the support of the club's hierarchy despite their hopes of Premier League survival being hit. There are no hopes at this point. Like, let's not pretend anymore that Burnley or Sheffield United are staying up. They're both gone. Everton's financial future will be put into major doubt at the end of the month if 777 Capital's proposed takeover remains unresolved. It doesn't look like it's getting any closer to getting done. Chelsea sent scouts to watch Archie Brown. We talked about him yesterday. And Portugal forward Rafael Leao has played down speculation about a move to Chelsea or PSG, saying his future lies at AC Milan, and good for him. Right, folks, I'm done for the day. I will see you tomorrow. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.
Sports Social Podcast Network.